All right, welcome DoorGrow hackers to the DoorGrow Show. If you are a property management entrepreneur that wants to add doors, make a difference, increase revenue, help others, impact lives, and you are interested in growing your business and life, and you're open to doing things a bit differently, then you are a DoorGrow hacker. DoorGrow hackers love the opportunities, daily variety, unique challenges, and freedom that property management brings. Many in real estate think you're crazy for doing it. You think they're crazy for not, because you realize that property management is the ultimate high trust gateway to real estate deals, relationships, and residual income. At DoorGrow, we are on a mission to transform property management businesses and their owners. We want to transform the industry, eliminate the BS, build awareness, change perception, expand the market, and help the best property management entrepreneurs win. I'm your host, property management growth expert, Jason Hull, the founder and CEO of DoorGrow. Now, let's get into the show. And my guest today, I'm hanging out here with Amit of Tallyfy. And Amit, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Jason.
Glad to have you. So I'm gonna share with the audience your intro here. So Amit is the CEO of Tallyfy, a workflow software product that specializes in helping small and medium-sized business scale their operations. Tallyfy enables anyone to document their process, or SOP, standard operating procedures, and to launch/run it in a team of people, while also being able to assign tasks to clients and people outside the company. Amit founded Tallyfy after decades of experience in mapping processes as flowcharts, and noticed that while everyone makes flowcharts, nobody actually follows them while they are working. Very true. Tallyfy is being used by various property management companies to run operations like onboarding and offboarding tenants, and also handling complex, repeatable real estate sales processes. So this sounds really cool. I had not yet heard of this. And so we're going to be talking, our topic today is scaling operations for property managers. And so, Amit, tell us how you kind of got started with this. Give us some background on you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm British, first of all. I came to the US 4 or 5 years ago. And I spent a while basically helping people improve workflows, mapping processes, things like that. And it tended to be mid-sized companies, large companies. It turns out that many small companies don't really have the tools or the know-how or the means to actually go and start documenting and scaling all their workflows. So that's where I noticed the opportunity that what if the rest of us who were not large companies actually had a simple tool that let us go in and just document a process and scale it and run it and basically sleep at night, so that we know things are done right and none of the tasks are falling through the cracks, and the client experience ultimately is completely awesome for your tenants, for your clients, whatever you want. So it was just that vision that it doesn't have to suck that much. And so we founded Tallyfy 5 years ago, and raised some funding from Silicon Valley. So we went through a bunch of Silicon Valley accelerators. We're now based in St. Louis, in Missouri, and it's just growing like crazy right now. So it sounded like other people agreed with our vision that they want to document and scale their operations too. So here we are. Now we're still figuring things out, but that's how we got here. That's a fairly simple story. There was a real pain. We had to fix it. So we built a product that fixed it.
Got it. Okay. So take us through how this is different than some of the other tools that might be on the market, what people are using. Let's get into the problem that exists, which was mentioned in your intro, that people, you create these complicated processes, or maybe you have none, or maybe it's just a Word doc, or you've got a flow chart, but people look at it once, maybe a few times when they're first onboarded, and then they think they know it, and then they ignore it.
Yeah, it's let's start with the problem. I mean, that's really the problem, right? The first problem is that you don't have any process whatsoever.
Okay.
That's not great. That's it's probably worth just sitting down for a minute and just saying, what is it that I do, right? How do I do this thing? Does it vary a lot every time I do it? Because remember, a process isn't a process unless it repeats.
Okay.
Right? Otherwise, it's just a project. A project is something that's just like unique every time, right?
Okay.
And to really grow your company reliably and scalably, what you need is processes, not projects. So the first step is, do you have processes and what are they? So the problem is, like, if you haven't written them down, we're a great tool to begin to just start writing them down in a structured form.
Okay.
Now, if you have a process, which is either a Word document or a flowchart, so say you have one and it looks like that, the problem is, again, like you said, who looks at it? You know, how do you update it? How do you, if you, you know, keep improving it? So there's things like collaboration and so on, which you need to do beyond just having a static document, because the document's always changing. So for example, when I do a process, I might spot an idea like, hey, next time, let's do it this way instead, right? Now, if I don't remember that or put it down into my main process, when next time comes round, it'll be forgotten.
Yeah.
Right? So there's this thing about documenting processes, which is a problem, but there's also this problem around continuously improving them. And that's something that often people don't do, because once it's written, it just lies there like in a safe. It's like in a cupboard. It just sits there, and dust gathers on top of it, and no one ever looks at it, right? And really, that's a wasted investment. So we enable you to do both. But now here's where the problem gets really, really big. Now that stuff is a problem. You know, that's great. If you're a property entrepreneur and you're on your own, you could start that way. But imagine you hired an intern, or you went into business with another property entrepreneur, or you have a team of people, right, who do things for you. Well, now the problem compounds about tenfold, because whatever's in your head has to be in a place, otherwise someone else is not going to be able to read your mind, right? Especially if they're new. So it helps new employees kind of see how you do things, which onboards them much faster. It makes sure that lots of people, as you hire more people and you grow, or you partner with folks, they know how you do things successfully as well. And the reason we don't like flowcharts is because they're just way too complicated. Like, I've seen flowcharts that are so big that if you try to print them out, they would actually print on an A2 size paper, like this big. It's so big, it doesn't even fit on my screen right now. Like, huge.
I've seen some print out their property management flowchart processes, and they had multiple sheets of paper and they taped them together.
And I admire people who have the tenacity to kind of document an amazing process like that. The trouble is, are you really going to look at that seriously? Right?
Right.
If it doesn't fit, like if it doesn't fit on a picture frame, who's going to use it? Right? And so often we found that just having like simple looking checklist type things is a lot easier for people to follow. And it works on phones, because a lot of people out there in the field, right? They're showing people houses, they're doing stuff like that. So it's got to work on a phone or a tablet. And a flowchart doesn't fit on a phone. I mean, it doesn't even fit on a piece of paper. So how is it going to fit on a phone, right? So devices that are small require those, require checklists and things like that. And so we were the first app initially that launched this, and a bunch of other people came out, but we initially created the idea of conditional branching. So like, if this, then that. In other words, like, if the tenant is like this kind of tenant, then show this task, otherwise just show this other task. So you can automate all your decisions too, which means that there's no guesswork that people are doing. It's just like, hey, here's a question. We hit the answer for the question, and the next question pops up, just like magic. So it handles that real-time workflow for people who are kind of bigger teams, like 3 people, 5 people, and even 50 people. So in fact, the more people that turn up, the more useful the app becomes.
Interesting. So, and this is really popular right now in the property management industry. We've had Process Street on the show before. which sounds kind of similar. There's some things that you guys have in common. What do you see as the difference between these two platforms or systems?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's left up to whoever's listening to judge the difference there, right? We don't know how they work. We don't know really much about them, to be honest. But one thing we did start the company believing in and having real experience in is improving workflows and mapping workflows. I spent a decade in London just mapping workflows. And that was my actual job, mapping workflows, right? And this is not like a get rich quick scheme. This is a pain I actually had for 10 years, right?
Right.
So I think having real experience in the area is probably a really beneficial thing if you're trying to build a tool for that. It's like, if you're trying to build a tool for property entrepreneurs, but you've never been a property entrepreneur or a landlord, it's going to be really difficult, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one thing the whole team has right now in spades. And then a real kind of UX focus. I do think that functional is fine, but like an app that's kind of like Slack. We love Slack because it's just such an easy app to use and it's kind of cool. It works. We love some of the UX pieces around making things easy and just making it fun, because there's a lot of checklist apps, but they look really boring, right? So what things can we do that does make it kind of engaging, kind of fun to think about the design, the experience of somebody using the app? And we're thinking very hard about that. And I'd like to think we're probably at the edge when it comes to really making that happen, making it an engaging experience for people.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges with software is adoption, getting people to use it. And me personally, I'm a visual guy. And so if software is ugly and gross, I don't want to use it. Like, it's a thing for me. Because I'm going to be living in that software and working with that software. I want it to be aesthetically pleasing and intuitive. It's that's a big crux of user interface and user experience design, and that's something I pay attention to.
Yeah, and I'll give you one example of how it's different. We don't use checklists. So in the actual user interface for Tallyfy, you won't see a checklist. You're probably wondering why. Like, does that make sense? Well, it does make sense, because if you think about it, the first thing people see when they look at a checklist is a boring bunch of tasks that they're not going to think about. They're just going to mark them done, even if they didn't do them. And seriously, I'm not kidding you. A lot of people just mark a task done just even though they haven't done it.
Yeah, it happens a lot. It happens a lot.
So
then you have to build in these weird checks and balances to like make them prove that they've completed it. Like put in their name, put in details to that step that you just did.
So to answer your question, what's different about our app? We've thought through these things because we've watched people do workflows for 10 years, right? And one of the things we do is what we call a card. And a card is like a rectangular shaped thing, and it invites collaboration. So it's not just like, oh, I'll just mark stuff done, but maybe I have an idea to improve it. Maybe I need to chat to my friend Jane about something I don't understand about this task, right? Or maybe I have to collect some information of that task. So it encourages more engagement. We're seeing more engagement on our app with actually doing workflows. And honestly, if you wanted checklists, you wouldn't need an app. You could just use any kind of to-do app, right? It's only when you're in a team where you need to track between people where these kinds of apps become really useful. So it's little touches like that, which honestly needs a lot of experience to think about things like that, those experiences that make us a little bit different from some of the others. So it's just like, real experience in the field of watching people do this and design thinking. That's what makes Tallyfy different.
So in Tallyfy, would you say that instead of seeing a checklist, they see what is the next step that they need to be focused on? Is that kind of the focus design-wise?
Yeah. We often found that people don't want to see anything but the one thing that they need to do right now.
What do I need to do right now? Right. Like, what's next?
What do I need to do right now? Yeah, right. Whereas imagine if you saw a list of 55 tasks. Wouldn't that be scary? Wouldn't that be like,
a bit overwhelming.
Like, that's just like, oh my God, it's so boring. I'm just going to mark everything done, even though I haven't done it, right? And it's things like that that are so important that no one really thinks hard about them. They think that they can just roll out some app and like, oh, well, everyone's going to use it. But how do you know everyone did what they said they would do, right? And these things are the things that help solve it. And there's some other things too, which we're adding down the road, which are seriously awesome, especially chat-based interactions, which we're adding with chat tools soon.
Cool.
So instead of like doing tasks, you're actually talking. So you're actually speaking to people on chat while also doing tasks at the same time.
Interesting.
And actually, I might as well announce on your show today, we just got approved by Slack, which is like a chat application that a lot of people use. We just launched our plugin for Slack 2 days ago. So it works beautifully with Slack, with a whole bunch of chat tools. So, yeah, you don't want to see a boring line of checkboxes. I don't think that's going to work out for anyone, really. So, we're really trying to think. We're trying to move across the realm of possibility here and make it engaging, make it better for people so that people actually love doing those workflows,
Yeah, awesome. So what else should property managers know about this app?
Well, it's free to sign up to. So honestly, you don't even need, we have a bunch of templates which we can help you with, but we often find that most property managers already have like processes or things that they already have written down. And it's super easy to just move them across to Tallyfy. We can help you with that too. But there is a bunch of sample workflows that we can also provide. Things like tenant screening, tenant onboarding, tenant eviction, maybe screening landlords or onboarding new landlords, or even just apartment building maintenance checklists or just things like that. But we have a bunch of samples we can help with. But the thing to really start doing is just go to tallyfy.com, hit the free sign up. It's free for 14 days. And then just reach out to us if you need help, because maybe you don't need help. Maybe it's that simple, right? So yeah, there's nothing to lose by just giving this a try, and we're here to help you if you need.
So now you had mentioned that one of the things that's important is to update processes. So as somebody moves through a process inside of Tallyfy, is there some sort of prompt, or how do you incentivize them making changes to improve the process?
Well, firstly, there's collaboration. So if you know who owns the process, like say it's your manager that owns it, you can just notify them using @replies saying, hey, here's an idea, right, to improve it. Now we're enhancing that down the road. So what we're doing is that as you're doing a process, even if you're not tracking it, you can hit a button that says suggest improvement. That's actually coming in a couple of months. Real simple button that just says, I'm just reading this thing. I have an idea. Here's the idea. And there's a proper thing that tracks the idea all the way through to the owner. And that way you can do continuous improvement, because the person doing the process often has the best ideas of how to improve it as well.
Oh, of course.
So for them, it's super simple. And also,
love it.
I feel like people ignore this question, but the reason people have Word documents now is because they don't want to like literally launch a process every time. They just want to read documentation, right?
Yeah.
Like this is how I do things.
Because it's fast.
So because it's fast, right? You don't have to actually track every task. That's just boring, right? So we're launching a plan. And by the way, people listening to the show, if you want to trial this plan, we're happy to talk to you about it. We're launching a very cheap plan that's literally less than half the price of all the competitors on the market right now, that literally lets you document and read a process, but also improve it. So take your Word document, which you might have already right now, or your Google Doc. Now think of all the features that you wished it had, but it doesn't. Like this improvement button, all sorts of other things which are not there right now, right? Package that in a simple thing that literally costs like $5 a month per user, right? And that's what we're launching soon. The ability to just document and read while also improving workflows at the same time. So that's
Sure.
actually something no one has really seen so far, because so far all the apps out there make you start an actual process and make you mark every task done.
Yeah, I've
Right?
noticed there's a really fine balance that needs to be achieved between making every single little tiny step have to be done and documented and checkmarked, and
Mm-hmm.
allowing the process to kind of be out of the way and allowing the employee or team member to just get work done. I don't go through
Mm-hmm.
a huge checklist every time I drive my car, but I probably
Mm-hmm.
did the very first time I drove it, right? I
Yeah.
was a little nervous, right? I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I was doing it right. But once you know how to drive the car, you want to get in and go, and you want to make sure things are right. But you want to get things done, and you don't want to hinder your team members' ability to get work done quickly by
Right.
making the process overly cumbersome more than it needs to be.
Yeah, spot on, because you get that muscle memory, you get the habit, and you already know how to do this stuff, right? So the last thing you need is now to update some other place to say you've done it, even though you know you've done it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that, I think, is no one's really addressing that. Like it's a real issue, right? And we are launching this next month or so. So we're very excited about that because it's also a lot cheaper. It's also a lot faster because you're not expecting people to like literally go to their phones and go check, 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 check. Like they're just reading stuff, and as they read it, if they need help, they can ask for help. So sometimes you get stuck. Like say in your example, you're going to start your car, right? But one day your car doesn't start, and you're like, "Oh, gee, I wonder why. I need help from my mechanic or something," right? Um, it's at that point when you need actual help because you're stuck at that task right now, right? Um, or you have an idea to improve it. So either one of those things. But that's the only time you have to interact, when you need help or you have an idea to improve it.
Right.
And that's what's coming. That's, I think, is kind of transformational because it means that you as a property manager or you as this, your staff don't sit there getting bored seeing a boring checklist of things they have to do every day. Because honestly, some of your people are actually really experienced. You don't need to offend them by making them check a box every time they do some tiny thing,
Let's
right?
connect it to money.
It's
So a business owner also doesn't want to pay twice as much for a team member to do a bunch of tasks simply because they're slowing them down at half speed because they have to do something overly cumbersome.
right. Isn't that completely insane? You buy an app to like speed you up, and it's actually slowing you down, right? So
Very, very
so that's
possible.
that could be possible. And if you misuse some of these apps, including ours, by the way, you could actually have that scenario, right?
Well, this one of the
Um,
biggest challenges I've noticed with slowing down team members in my own business in the past was interruptions. For example, we used Slack for a while, but I found that Slack was causing so many interruptions with team members because everybody was
mhm.
messaging everybody constantly. And so the challenge also then becomes avoiding interruptions because one interruption, according to some, costs 18 minutes of productivity. And so if you have two team members interrupting each
Mhm.
other, it's like 30 minutes of labor that is blown out the door. And so if somebody's being interrupted once every 18 minutes, they almost feel like they're spinning their wheels. And so reducing
And I would add to
interruptions is
that,
also important.
right? And the average professional services hourly rate, fully loaded in the US, is $44 an hour. So you've literally just thrown, what is it, $20? You say 30 minutes every hour, something like that. So it's
These
literally
members
like
interrupt
time
each
equivalent.
other every 18 minutes. Yeah, that's almost about 30 minutes of work. Like you double that. So yeah, because
Mhm.
between the two people, you're losing 18 minutes for each interruption.
Right.
So my
It's
business
crazy.
is built
So
around idea of eliminating interruptions. Like this is a focus that we have because the less
right.
interruptions. So that means the team members need to be able to get the answers that they need quickly. We want to reduce them asking the same thing more than once. We want to make
Yeah.
sure things are documented so that they don't have to keep coming back. So, if somebody asks me something and I have to tell them how to do it, I make sure they document. I say, here's how to do it,
Mhm.
write it, document it, put that into our process and make sure it's done.
Yeah. And let me tell you one thing about chat and well, Slack, for example, is a chat tool.
Yeah.
Chat tells you what has happened. Chat
Yeah.
doesn't tell you what's going to happen.
Sure.
Or what should be happening next, right? Chat just tells you what's going on right now, not what's going to happen next or what should be happening next.
Right.
So they're two completely different worlds. Tallyfy and processes and Slack and chat. I mean, these are completely different, things altogether. So you can have the best of both worlds. I mean, we have an integration to Slack, but we're doing it in a non-interruptive way, the integration that I'm talking to you about. So we're very conscious of that design experience because it is annoying because everyone feels like checking their chat all day long, right? Like what messages they got, things like that.
I've got 20 notifications in this room. I got to read all of them.
Right. Yeah. So we don't use Slack to advertise Tallyfy. I want to put it that way. So a lot of people build integrations, but they get those integrations to make people go back to their apps. Right? Because they're like, oh, we'll just use Slack to make people come back to our app. But you just compounded the problem by interrupting someone every 5 minutes, right? With some notification. So we're definitely not going to do that. So what we're doing with Slack is quite different, and chat in general. So I'm really excited about that future. And a lot of it is shaping up right now. So if any of this interests you, especially if you're looking to get your operations into one place as a property manager, just be in touch. We're really excited to speak to you folks right now. So
very cool. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing this with everybody. How can they get in touch with Tallyfy and learn more?
Well, visit tallyfy.com. That's TALLYFY.com. Tallyfy. And the best thing to do is just sign up. There's a big sign up button on the homepage. Just feel free to check it out. You have nothing to lose. It's free of cost. And really, once you're in and you get the basic picture of how things work, feel free to reach out. That's when it will be most useful to you personally. So, I'm the CEO and the founder, and most times, I often take calls. Like, it's not like I'm hiding in a corner. I take calls with customers, right, directly. And it's a pretty flat company. We love what we do. And we like being honest with you. So one thing you won't find about us is that we won't try and sell you. If we think this is not going to work for you, we'll just say it's not going to work for you, right? And that's the kind of, I think, the fresh honesty many of these product vendors need to have, right? It's not just a case of pushing you a subscription plan to sell you stuff. It's got to work for you. It's got to deliver benefits. And that's what we're interested in.
Yeah, I agree. We're very similar. I had a phone call today, and it was a startup property manager. And I just asked him, I said, do you want me to convince you should do property management or that you're not? I said, I can go either way. I'll explain to you either one. So, so we want to make sure people get an accurate picture and don't jump into something that you regret later. So, so I'll wrap this up. I want to tell everybody, I believe every business should have this is one of the major systems that every business should have. They need a support system, they need an accounting system, they need several different systems. One of the systems they need is a process documentation system. They need some sort of system to make sure the processes are also being done correctly. And this can kind of help with both. This helps with both. And so I recommend everybody check it out. And I'm excited to hear feedback on maybe here. So if anybody starts using it.
Yeah.
And Amit, I appreciate you coming on the show. I will let you go.
Yeah, it was super cool. Yeah, thanks for the time, Jason. Much appreciated.
Very welcome. Right. So is Tallyfy